How's it going? This is Dominic from Sheer Detailing, and today we're going to be showing you guys how to apply the Colourlock leather restoration products, particularly the Colourlock Leather Fresh, on this beautiful Acura RL here today. What this product does is it renews leather where it's started to wear out, show signs of wear, scratched, or something like that. Whenever you're looking to fix the coloring of the leather, doesn't do much for softness or suppleness, but there's other treatments that we can do for that. There's a couple other products that are going to be needed in this process. You're going to need a heat gun in order to rapidly dry the products. You're going to need Colourlock GLD solvent. This is what's going to prepare the leather. After you fully clean the leather and then you're ready to apply any of these products, you're going to use the GLD solvent before doing any kind of dye work to fully degrease the leather and make sure that there's no remnants of body oils and grease and stuff like that left behind. Then before we apply the dye, we have a primer that we're going to use. This is the Colourlock primer that you're going to use before painting the leather. So you apply this over the surface after you've already prepared it with GLD. Then after you're done with the primer, you dry it with the heat gun, and then you go ahead and start applying your Leather Fresh. Leather Fresh is mixed with a bit of cross-linker here. This makes it more durable and harder. And then after you're done applying as many coats of Leather Fresh as need be, you're going to go ahead and apply the top coat, which also goes mixed with a bit of cross-linker to make it more hard and durable. And then after you've gone through the entire process, you're all done. So let's show you guys the specimen that we're going to be working on today. So here's the part of the leather that we're going to be working on here today. You can see just from regular wear and tear getting in and out of the car, it started to develop this line here where the dye is worn off the top surface of the leather. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we repair this, but we're also going to dye a little bit more into the area here because it's just looking like it's overall losing a bit of color. So we're going to restore this, pretty much this entire bolster here today. So we've already completely cleaned the leather with the Colourlock Strong Leather Cleaner. And that's, before you do any kind of leather work, you always want to make sure the leather's completely clean beforehand. So after you've already cleaned it, you're going to grab your GLD. So here's your GLD solvent. We have it here in a spray bottle. We're going to spray it all over the surface, and then we're going to wipe it off. Then we're also going to spray some onto the towel and agitate a little bit more here in the area that has a little bit more wear. So now that you have your towel, we want to be very careful when you're doing the GLD. GLD will remove the color from the leather. It will also turn it very gummy if you leave it on long enough. So when you spray it on, you want to make sure you wipe it off almost immediately. You don't want to let it dwell too long. It evaporates very quickly, and it's very, very strong stuff, so just use it with caution. So first, like I said, we're going to spray it over the surface, wipe it off, and then we're going to spray a little bit more onto the towel and agitate this little area here. Okay, just give it a quick wipe, like so. And you'll see the leather becomes a little bit tacky after that. So now we're going to spray a little bit here on the towel, agitate a little bit more in that area. See how it sort of darkens that little area and lightens up the gray around it a little bit? It's exactly what you want. What it's doing here is it's opening up the leather to then accept the primer and later on the dye and stuff like that. Want to make sure you wear some gloves when you're working with most of these chemicals. Normally I'd use gloves with the GLD as well. Now, these are the Colourlock leather sponges that we use to apply the dye, primer, top coat, all these types of products. What I like to do though, since it's such a big block, unless you're doing a very large area, like when you're doing small little spot jobs like this, I cut these up into about 4 little pieces. So those little pieces should look something like this. This is going to let you use that one cube 4 different times with 4 different products. So we're going to go ahead and get our primer here. Open the top, place the sponge on top, and just give it a quick flip like so. That's all you need, just a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and apply it onto the leather in a nice circular motion. Yeah, I mean, you don't normally have to do the entire bolster, but since this one has a few other little small signs of wear, I'm just going to repair the entire part. But normally if it was just, a small little piece and that was it, you'd just have to dab on a little bit in that area. But since we're doing this entire piece anyways, just for, the sake of making the entire seat look better, we just applied it to the whole area. After you've applied your primer, you want to grab your heat gun, and you can do it either on high or low setting. Just make sure you constantly move it and you'll see it flash and dry. Alright, so now you can see that you have the primer already there applied. Now we're going to go ahead and mix our dye with the crosslinker. You're going to want to get a syringe similar to this one. Any kind of syringe or something that you can measure with that you can, suck the product up into would work. These are leftover syringes that we've used from coating cars and stuff like that with OptiCoat products. So something like that would work. Just make sure you clean it out really well with GLD solvent beforehand, or find any similar sort of syringe. As you can see in here, we have about 10 cc of the dye. We're going to grab our crosslinker. We're just going to suck up maybe about 1 cc, 1.5 or so. You don't really need too much. Keep in mind, the more crosslinker you put, the thicker it's going to become. The crosslinker is also going to allow for less coats to have to be applied. So we sucked up a small amount there, you can see, of the crosslinker. Now you want to just make sure you suck it all the way inside. Give it a little bit of air. Wipe off the tip there with your towel. And give it a really good shake to mix it well. You want to mix it for about a minute. Also make sure you close up the crosslinker very well, as it will dry out quickly. It helps if you give it a bit more air. It'll help you mix it faster. Now once you have this mixed, you have about 15 minutes or so to use that particular batch of dye, so to say, before it starts to cure and harden. So you don't want to necessarily mix an entire syringe full at a time if you're not going to be able to use that amount within those 15 minutes. Go ahead and put a sponge on top of it and try and squeeze out the majority of the air. You want to put the sponge on top so that way you're not going to squirt the dye up into the air or anything that would be wasted. Well, it's in just air, because remember I only had about 10 cc plus a little bit of the crosslinker. So then I sucked up about an extra 20 cc or so just of air to get some space to be able to mix it. So then now all I really did was purge the air out of it and place the foam on top to prevent it from squirting out if it was to get to the point of the liquid. So now that we've already reached our point, you can see the liquid starting to come out. You want to put a nice little bead down your applicator. Go ahead and start applying it. Apply a little bit more. Thin coats are going to work out better than thick coats will. Thick coats are going to give you high spots. It's just going to be more of a pain to finish afterwards. It's much simpler if you just apply thin, even coats and go from there. It may take a little bit longer, but the end result is much better. And always, before you go ahead and apply leather dye to an entire area like we're doing here, make sure you do a test spot in an inconspicuous area just to make sure that the color matches 100%. If it doesn't match, send it back to us and we'll make sure we get it right. Or that's if it was a custom color. If it's not a custom color and it's one off our color chart, then in that case, unfortunately, we can't guarantee a match. But if you did send us a leather sample to get a custom blend, we do guarantee those that they're going to match. So just make sure that you send us a custom color just to make sure we get a perfect match. You just want to make sure you apply it nice and evenly. Doesn't really matter whether you go up and down, side to side in circular motions, just as long as you're getting nice even coverage over the entire area. And see here where we have a little bit more wear, you can then go and just sort of dab it on there a little bit just to give it a little bit more during that coat. After you've applied a coat, go ahead and grab your heat gun, apply heat. And you're going to do this in between every coat just to make sure that we're not lifting up previous dye that we applied beforehand. Okay, so now you can see it's nice and dry to the touch again thanks to the heat gun. We're going to go ahead and apply another layer. Depending on the color, it can take a couple coats. It can take 10 coats. If it's typically lighter colors, will take more coats just because the dye doesn't saturate as much as the darker colors do. On a black, for example, you'd be able to get similar repair like this done within 4 to 5 layers, whereas on this gray, it's probably going to take us around maybe 8 to 10 layers in order to get it perfect. And as you can see now, after the second coat, it's looking a bit more covered. Go ahead and apply heat again. And we're just going to repeat this process until our signs of wear are completely gone. Okay, so now we've applied about 8 or 9 layers of the dye to the area. As you can see, the worn out part is completely gone. The crease is still there. I mean, that we can't really do much about, but as far as the visual signs of wear from the scratch and a couple little scratches it had here, it's pretty much 99%, 100% gone. So now we still have a little bit more work to do, even though it looks perfect already. Now we have to start finishing the product. So after we've applied the majority of our dye, what I like to do is give the leather a nice light sanding with the leather sanding pad, just to level down any high spots. So you want to make sure, you kind of feel it a little bit. You can feel more or less where there's a couple high spots. There's one over here, for example. You're always going to get those no matter what. It's just whether the leather dye starts to gum up a little bit in the applicator pad or something from the air falls. There's a few different variables that can go into, how many high spots you're going to get. As far as while you're dyeing while you're applying your majority of your coats, make sure you change your sponge frequently. Only use each sponge for about 1 to 2 coats, in a small area, working time of about 5 minutes or so, because they already start to dry up and start to get gummy. And the more gummy it gets, the more high spots you're going to get. So the more frequently you change out your little applicator sponge, the better result you're going to end up with. So we're going to go ahead and grab our leather sanding pad here. It's lightly abrasive, not too bad, so we're just going to give it a very light sand. Okay, and you make sure you feel it, make sure there's no more high spots left behind. Go ahead and grab the microfiber towel you're using with the GLD and just give it a quick wipe off, just to make sure there's no dust left behind from the sanding pad. Yes, and this is your final layer. So when you're applying this one, you want to make sure when it's going on that it's looking nice and even. You don't want to leave it looking very streaky or smeary or with too much in one area. You want to make sure that this one comes out very nice and even. So that's why you can see I'm doing these small little circular motions after spreading it over the entire surface. Okay, so now that we've applied our final layer of dye, now we're going to go ahead and apply our top coat. Now we have to mix the top coat a bit with the cross-linker in another syringe just to make sure that it's a bit more durable of a layer on top of the leather, and that way it's more resistant to further abrasion in the future. Depending what area of the car you're repairing is what's going to determine how much top coat you're going to have to use. For example, a high traffic area like this, you're going to want to use a higher percentage of top coat, closer to around 5% more or less of however much dye you're mixing. Areas like a steering wheel, for example, you can use up to 10% of cross-linker to make it even more durable, since it's a much more contacted area. But other areas like door panels, armrests, stuff like that, where it's not very high traffic area, you can use as little as 1 to 2%. Just that way, those areas aren't nearly touched as much, so they don't need so much resistance to abrasion. If you want to come over here, we'll show. It also comes in a glossy version if you'd like a glossy finish on your leather, but typically factory OEM finishes are dull, so we're not going to use the gloss top coat for the most part. Make sure you give it a good shake for a couple of seconds. You see there's a couple beads inside that'll help you shake it and mix the product a bit. No, the beads come with it when you get the liter version of the product. Unfortunately, primer and top coat only come in liter format, so smaller versions at the moment aren't available, but we're working to get those available in the future. So what I like to do is pour a bit here in the cap so that way we can suck it out with the syringe. Spills a little bit, no big deal. Now before you suck up your top coat, you can get a little bit of your cross-linker. As you can see, there's just a bit of cross-linker inside. Let that final bead go down and suck it up. Make sure you wipe off the tip so we don't cross-contaminate here at all. Close up your cross-linker. Okay, and same thing as before, you want to make sure you give it a nice shake to make sure you mix it very well. Go ahead and pour the remainder in here. Close this guy up. As you can see now, it's sort of like a thicker, milky white looking fluid. So we're going to do the same thing we did as before with the sponge to purge out as much air as possible. So go ahead and purge out the air into the sponge to avoid it from squirting. And there. And that's your mixed cross-linker and top coat. So now same principle as what we did with the dye. We're just going to use about maybe 1 to 2 coats of this stuff. Applied the same manner, small circular motions, nice and even, thin coats. Dry it with the heat gun, repeat again if necessary. Dry it with the heat gun again, and then after you're done with the top coat, you're pretty much done. So if you want, have a seat back in this seat and we'll take a look. You want to do the same thing pretty much. Apply a little bit to your pad here. Go ahead and apply it to the surface. Now if you don't use cross-linker with top coat, it's going to be very watery and it may even like bead up on the surface. So top coat is really something that we need to use with the cross-linker, just to make sure that it sets down nice and evenly and it doesn't leave it with any streak marks or with an off finish than you would want. And now, since these are higher traffic areas, we're going to go ahead and apply a second coat of top coat. In most cases, it's not necessary to apply a second coat, but we mixed a bit of product, so might as well use it. Because once it's got cross-linker on it, same principle as with the dye, you have about 15 minutes or so to use it, and then it's going to become hard already. Okay, so now we're pretty much finished with the entire leather repair. As you can see, we've applied all the layers of dye we needed to. We've applied 2 layers of our dull top coat to prevent further abrasion and protect that layer of dye that we've laid down. And the scratch has completely disappeared. The creases are still there, but unfortunately those we can't really do much about. But at least now the visual signs of wear and tear are completely gone, and the leather looks pretty much just as good as new. And that's pretty much it for the Colourlock leather repair process. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, feel free to call us, text us, email us. All our information is available on our website, www.sheardetailing.com, or you can check out our YouTube page and the rest of our YouTube channel as well. Thanks for watching.